think what makes Porsche such an impeccable brand is their understanding of their history and their understanding of pushing cars forward. And for me, it's that fabric of and that intensity that Porsche bring that really makes people fall in love with them. The inspiration behind Canford Classics is I've always had an interest in old cars, and particularly old Porsches. Bought the first one 16, 17, and it's never diminished. It's always liked the old classic lines of an old Porsche. It's just simple. It's a car I fell in love with. It's the shape, the style, the look. The fact is, when I got in the first one and started driving one, that it's still a modern day car in terms of keeping up with modern day traffic, yet has all those classic looks and the classic feel and the textural feel of driving an old classic car. And to this day, there is no better, in my opinion. I'm Alan Drayson. I've been working on Porsches for, it's got me coming up 29, 30 years now, and I own Canford Classics, which has now been in operation for 12, coming on 13 years. So the process of restoration here at Canford Classics. Now, we're not really a service centre, we are a restoration company. But so whilst we might do individual jobs, our main forte here is our full restorations, where cars are brought to us, sometimes in bits, sometimes driving, sometimes not driving, and we can take that car through the entire process to the final fully restored car. Now, there's a very specific set of steps throughout that process, which will not just be Porsches, will be any marque of cars which is being restored. But here, the first job is obviously to inspect a car while it's complete. So when a car first comes in, we do have a pretty good idea, but nothing gives you a clear idea until a car is stripped. That goes for bodywork, it clearly goes for internals of an engine and internals of a gearbox, which can't be assessed by eye. So if we take an example, the blue car which you've seen, that was a driving car that was brought to us. Clearly it was in need of repair. I'm sure there's some photos we can add to show the severity of the rust on that car. But the car's very special. It's a right-hand drive, clearly a rare car. A 1972 clearly makes it special with the side oil tank. And it was originally Gemini Blue, and the customer specifically wanted a right-hand drive Gemini Blue 2.4S. So your options aren't going to be endless. So this car was brought to us, and the first stage, as I mentioned, is to fully strip the car. It doesn't take as long as you think. 40 hours later, that car is in bits. Engine out, gearbox, interior, it's a rolling shell. You then get a much better idea on the severity of the rust. But clearly, it makes much more sense to have all of the original paint and all of the original underseal removed, so you've got a fully transparent view of the car. First step, quite clearly, bodywork. Whilst the bodywork is being undertaken, we then go through the entire suspension. And as I mentioned, within our restorations, when I say entire suspension, I mean every single nut and bolt. Now, on the blue car, for example, the quality of that is that every single nut and bolt will also be stripped and replated. If that bolt has any corrosion or it is defect in any way, it will be replaced by another original nut and bolt that we have for that car. Then panels are ordered. All panels are ordered from Porsche unless some are not available. If they're not available, there are other sources, or we have to make them. But a key point of that is a lot of the panels that still come from Porsche are actually later panels. So you might find a panel which is actually from a 964 or so on. Those panels then have to be backdated. So even a brand new panel that comes through may have many hours backdating them to the right profile, the right look, the right design, the right shape for an early car. Now the blue car, for example, was is the worst state I have ever seen a 911 ever be restored. And that's also what I've seen on the internet. So again, it brings in that philosophical question of when a car is restored or how much of the car is new. Quite simply, I think the definition is there is an easy route and a hard route in bodywork. If you take the easy route, i.e. taking the number and putting it in another car, that is a reshell, that is not a restoration. This car, all the panels were purchased separately, and then the car rebuilt. So for example, of that car, we are talking floors, roof, inner wings, outer wings, chassis legs, front slam panel, rear slammer, bonnet, boot, doors, A posts, B posts, kidney bowls, the list is endless. But it's taken many hours. The restoration time, bodywork alone on that is 720 hours. Once that's finished, the next stage for the bodywork is paint. Now we have our own in-house state-of-the-art paint shop here. Then that's 250 hours, I believe, and that's painted all in original materials. It's all in Glazerix, so we're talking Glazerix primers, Glazerix base coats and Glazerix lacquers. But whilst that's all happening, our engine room upstairs, the engine is stripped and again assessed, all parts are measured as you would expect, and the same with the gearbox. So whilst the car, as I mentioned, being welded, we're already now working on the engine, the gearbox, we're already working on the interior, and we're already working on the suspension. Now, one thing we've tried to do, or have done here in Canford Classics, is that everything's in-house. Years ago, some parts got outsourced, and the problem with outsourcing anything or from any restoration shop is audit control. You don't have control when it leaves these doors. So we've now, over the years that we've been going, developed all of the processes in-house, from our body shop, from trim works, from paint work. We restore our own fuchsias. We do our own machining on our engines. We do our own heads. So we machine our own valve guides. The list is endless what we do. I think the only thing I was asked that is outsourced now is chrome and powder coat, but I don't think there's many that would try and do that in-house. So again, it gives us the ability to control all of those aspects to ensure that we stick with the time frames, but more importantly, we stick with the budget, and we also manage to update the customer throughout that restoration. So when a car leaves the body shop after now being painted, it's already been panelled up several times. It's been panelled up with the lights that are going in the car. It's been panelled up with the rubbers that are being used. So we ensure that the panel gaps remain exact throughout the entire process. And the refit stage of one of these, we normally budget about 300 hours. So the car that you've seen there, within the next 3 to 4 weeks, will look like a finished car. But it obviously doesn't end there. The engine and the gearbox being built upstairs, once the engine's been completed, goes on our engine dyno, gives us the ability to run the engines in, test them, power run them, give them the actual break-in time that they need. So when it goes into the car, we know it's correct and the performance numbers are correct. Now, once all that's completed and the engine and gearbox are in the car, we are really in the final stages of testing. So testing the rest of the suspensions. We've obviously got the geometry to set up. The road testing, there's fundamentally a snagging list, as there always is in the end of any restoration. Now, again, that's probably a 2 or 3 week process after that. So in its entirety, we often state a full restoration between 10 and 12 months. And as soon as we finish this blue one, we have a 73 RS to build, another 2.4S to build, another 68 to build, and long may it continue. There's a lot to be said about the fabric of a restoration, and it does have its ups and downs. But clearly the best point is when a restoration is finished. Now, it's a lot of work to get to that last nut or that last bolt or that last polish, but it does come to an end. And that final item, that final part that you finish, does make you smile. It certainly makes you smile from the individuals that worked on the car, which, for example, the car behind us would have had a lot of individuals and a lot of hours. And each one of those brings a skill base, which to me, I'm always amazed. Now, these are individuals that are quite nonchalant in their work. So for example, the chap that's welded this on the jig, the chap that's painted it, the chap that's trimmed it, wired it, built it, the engine builder, the dyno tester, it's phenomenal. But that conclusion of that last item it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see all of that work and all of those hours come in the final product. It's a real pleasure, and hopefully we do many more in the future.